Hello guys, here Gabby again. We're going to talk about a little bit about application gateway and the Azure APIM configuration. Um, if every microservice implements security routing and throttling, we don't have microservices. We have duplicated problems. That's why we put an application gateway in front, and in Azure that's the APIM. So what's the APIM and why we use it? The APIM, the Azure API Management, is an API gateway that sits in front of the microservices. So we already been talking about microservices, all about it, but here we have other thing that is the APIM, the application gateway, okay? The Azure API Management, that is an API gateway, okay? The purpose is not just exposing APIs. The purpose is to centralize responsibilities that should not be repeated inside every service. Okay? So, for example, we have the security, the routing, the rate limiting, the cross-cutting policies, and in that way, the microservices stay focused on business logic, not public exposure. So what happens if we do not have an API gateway? Without an API gateway, every service, every microservice start doing gateway work, okay? Then we get security logic duplicated across services, inconsistent policies, different throttling behavior per endpoint, and changes that require touching many code bases. That's how our architectures slowly turn into a distributed mess. So what's the benefit of using an APIM? What solves for us? Um, First, the authentication and authorization at the gateway. Okay, I repeat, the authentication and authorization at the gateway. First, the authentication. So the gateway can validate the JWT and enforce access rules. Okay. Second, the rate limit and throttling. That is that this protects downstream services from abuse and traffic spikes. Third, header and URL rewriting. For example, if we receive some request, a call, and we can and it's like an endpoint, we can rewrite it to call a backend of us in a microservice. For example, I don't know, if a front end is calling an endpoint with version 1 and we need it with version 3, we can rewrite it if they can't, for example, okay? That's igual. So an example. It let us normalize incoming requests, map external contracts, and keep internal services stable. We can versioning and control the exposure. That's what I said before. We can expose versions safely and control what the public sees without forcing internal services to change any shape. And the most important, I think, we have a single entry point. Okay, all the traffic can enter through the APIM. The APIM validates the JWT first, and only then routes the request to the corresponding microservice. I repeat, the APIM validates the JWT first, then routes the request to the corresponding microservice. We have a request, the request have a JWT, it comes through the APIM validates the JWT, the token that has three parts, do what it has to do with the policy, with the rules, and so on, and then it redirects with its proper microservice. That's the key. It validates and enforces policies before traffic ever hits our services. Okay? Why the APIM made our systems better? We have less repeated logic in microservices. We can change policies without touching code. For example, because they live in the gateway, we don't re-implement the same gateway concerns everywhere. One security rule change in one place. We work with that. If some security rule change, we touch it in only one place, not in anywhere. That's a massive operational win. So we have to remember this. The APIM centralizes cross-cutting gateway responsibilities. The APIM, the application manager, the Azure Application Management, centralize cross-cutting concerns with the gateway. Okay? So the microservices stay focused on business. This separation makes the whole system more consistent, safer, and easier to operate. Okay? So I hope this helped. See you next time. Bye.